Welcome back to the third and last module in financial and industry aspects. Today we're going to be looking at identify the composition of a selected industry sector and its procurement systems. These are the module outcomes. We're going to look and see to identify and analyze what is the value chain within a selected industry or sector. Then we're going to identify what is the business principles and processes within a selected sector or industry environment. Then we're going to demonstrate an understanding of different procurement systems that may apply in specific sector or industries. All right, let's look and see how do you identify the composition of a selected industry sector and its procurement systems. A value chain is basically a chain of activities that a business will operate in a specific industry performs in order to deliver a valuable product or a service for the market. A value chain typically consists of inbound distribution or logistics, manufacturing operations, outbound distribution or logistics, marketing and selling, as well as after-sales service. Here's an example of the value chain within a selected industry or sector. There you can see there you have, for example, a value chain, for example, a string of companies or players working together to satisfy a market demand for a particular product. And there you can see there's input suppliers, maybe vet services for farmers. And also you can see there, based on what type of product they're actually going to be delivering, they might need a packer or primer cut. So for example, it's to a butchery. And delivery to the actual fabrication, for portion cuts, as well as to eventually your food or service distributor. And that would reach your different markets. Now let's understand and explain the different value chains within the context of their own sector of the industry. So you have basically your value chain at the top there. You've got suppliers, business, as well as customers. And there from the suppliers, they give their inputs towards the business. And the business will, based on that inputs, will then eventually lead to the products that are going to be given out to the different customers. Of course, the customers will be paying the different product price, which then entails goes to the business and eventually will lead back to input payments back to the actual suppliers of the actual product itself there. And as you can see, there is the production flow as well as your monetary flows. Now, the types of businesses in the value chains that actually do exist. First, you have manufacturers. A manufacturer processes raw materials into finished products ready for resale or distribution to wholesalers or direct to retailers. Examples, for example, could be your furniture manufacturers, clothing manufacturers, car manufacturers. Then you have wholesalers. Wholesalers are basically the intermediate companies that act between a manufacturer and a retailer or industrial users by assembling, storing, as well as distributing products. For examples are macro and maybe trade center. So when you buy from a wholesaler, you have to buy then in bulk. Retailers. Retailers usually break bulk products into saleable portions. For examples are supermarkets, butchers, cell phone shops, spazas, and also convenience stores. Services. A service business is any business which will sell a service to a customer. These types of businesses usually generate income in the form of a percentage or a fee. Examples of such service providers could be your taxis, your buses, trains, training companies, hairdressers, and banks. Other factors that could also influence the value chain, to say there are other organizations that also have an influence on the value chain, and these organizations influence all value chains in one way or another. For example, trade unions or collective bodies, government and non-governmental organizations, communities as well as private organizations, as well as professional bodies. Now, let's identify and explain what are the chains of command within that supply chain in relation to your own business. All institutions, private, government, or even community organizations have to buy certain things, and this is normally done by a purchasing department. And those things that could be purchased, for example, could be your raw materials, machinery and equipment, as well as services such as installation, repair, maintenance, as well as transportation. Now, the chain of command in any organization. This basically is a chain of command. This would include your specialists, which are within the department, such as your project managers and any other specialists within the company. In the diagram, you can see that, for example, you've got your CEOs there, you've got top managers, middle managers, as well as your frontline managers as well. Now, the chain of command is still in the value chain. It may sound strange, but actually there is a chain of command in the value chain as well. This is because some organizations are larger than others and therefore have more authority and influence. The larger the product or the amount to be paid, the higher up in the hierarchy that decision maker will be. Whereas the smaller that product or the actual amount to be paid, the lower down the hierarchy the decision maker will actually be made. Also, the effect of chain of command, for example, on a new entrepreneur. You actually have to be aware of that chain of command in the organization that you want to do business with. So, for example, it's important for you to talk to the person who can actually make the decision when you actually deliver your sales pitch. If you're selling, for example, a photocopier, you actually probably don't want to talk to the purchasing manager. You actually want to talk to the person who actually orders the stationery, because they're going to be the person who's actually going to be able to influence the decision made by the purchasing manager in order to say if that need is in fact true for that organization. Typical organizational structures as they could apply to new ventures and different industries. It's also good to actually operate within a defined structure for good communication processes and workflow to actually help to ensure that more efficient management of resources. Those examples of such organizational structures is a matrix organizational structure, functional organizational structure, product organizational structure, customer organizational structure, as well as geographic organizational structure. Now, to prepare and position your sales pitches according to identified chains of command. You now have contacted, for example, your customer, but you actually need to prepare yourself very well in advance to actually make that sale. This obviously is the make or break time for you. Now, in your manual or letter guide, between pages 69 to 73, please read through the suggestions that they have there on how to actually make that sales pitch. Now, how do you identify, explain, and actually utilize communication channels within the industry or sector, the role plays that are appropriate to ensure effective sales results? Good communication within a business helps to reach a number of important objectives. The aim, which is named to contain the costs, to increase productivity, to give morale support, and to overcome obstacles in communication. There are a number of communication channels models that you can use in your business so to generate the required result, like branding and or sales. The following are, for example, networking. Networking would be, for example, reaching out to other people in different industries to see if they actually are wanting to invest in you or purchase your product. Also, look in your same industry as well, same thing as well, but also trying to also see if you could maybe partner up with somebody in your own industry. Press releases, also very important as well. Open days, having people come and visit your institution or business to actually come and see what it actually is that you have to offer. Infomercials, as well as blogging, are also other ways of communicating. How do you actually identify and analyze role players within a specific industry or a sector? Before you can even think of doing your business plan for your new venture, you have to identify who the role players are involved in your industry. You also need to know those role players in your industry in order to determine where your business venture will actually fit in, and also know how the other role players will actually affect your business venture. Without this information, you cannot set your goals and objectives. You cannot do your business plan or your marketing plan, and you cannot identify your potential customers and suppliers, and you cannot even make a success of your business venture. An example of such a thing would be is if you wanted to open up your own training academy. You need to know what type of courses you would like to run. Do they need to be registered or not registered courses? If they do need to be registered, with which institutions, which bodies do you need to register? And of course, do you need a license to actually trade, to actually do training? These are all questions that you need to identify before you actually start with your new venture. Please complete class activity 7 in your workbook. Moving on, the business principles and processes within a selected sector or industry environment. Firstly, identifying the different methods of attaining business within your own business context. First one could be tendering. Tendering, as you know, is where you basically apply, or basically there is an invitation for companies to basically submit their tenders in order to see if they would like to do the specific job. For example, if there is from a government department, they'd send a tender out, for example, training to be conducted for some of their staff. So different training providers would submit their proposals in order to see if they are going to be the selected training or selected training provider to provide that training. There could also be joint venturing and subcontracting. Once again, it's similar to the first one, tendering, but you do not do this in isolation. You do it with a business partner or another company in order for you to get that tender. Cold calling. Cold calling is basically phoning people off the hook. You basically phone anybody and you try and get them to invest. Cold calling is basically you don't know what that person's response will be and you just hope that they actually will respond and, of course, be interested in your business. Sales networking, basically trying to connect with other sales institutions or basically salespeople to see if they would be interested in your product. And of course, direct selling. That is where you are directly selling to individuals, directly going to their different places of work, walking in or even going to people's homes to actually see if they would be interested in purchasing your products. Then, money is also one of the most important resources that any business will obviously need. The different sources of funding is available, of course, is from your banks. Suppliers can also be able to provide you with income as well. Customers, joint ventures, partners, as well as labor. Now, let's identify all role players who are going to be part of the success of that selected venture in order for you to ensure that the sales and negotiations are planned effectively. You will have to know those role players in your industry in order to determine where your business venture will actually fit in and also how the other role players will actually affect your business venture. Without this information, you cannot set your goals and objectives, you cannot do your business plan or market plan, you cannot identify who your potential customers and suppliers, and you cannot make a success of your business venture. Negotiation and sales role players. Negotiation is your actual opportunity to demonstrate, show your commitment and your company to long-term relationships to try and maximize both values for both parties. For those who wish to sell businesses, that value is ultimately at the end of the day, which is synonymous with the one and same with a profit. Negotiation is a process whereby interested parties will try and, for example, resolve disputes or disagreements, agree upon courses of action, bargain for individual or collective advantages, and or attempt to craft outcomes which will obviously serve the mutual or shared interests of both parties. Next part we're going to be looking at is to establishing joint ventures or subcontract relations where necessary to deliver on larger projects. A joint venture, as mentioned earlier on, or a strategic alliance is a planned union which is in the form of a partnership where businesses will come together to share knowledge, markets and profits or income. Joint ventures can also take on various forms. Small companies, for example, can band together to take on the giants of the different industries. For example, if you're going to be wanting to if you're wanting to do a wedding, you, for example, might be wanting to hire a photographer. You might be the caterer, but you need to have a photographer. So you might end up doing a joint venture with that photographer or even somebody else who might be a wedding coordinator in order for you to get this project completed. The golden rewards of joint ventures. Companies that build successful joint ventures follow the same systematic, logical process. They will have set clear goals, find a partner, plan that venture, but also manage that actual relationship. Because if you don't, you could end up losing the actual project and obviously end up being a failure. Please complete class activity 8 in your workbook. Procurement systems that may apply for a specific sector or industry. Procurement is a process of obtaining or purchasing goods or services at the best possible price. This will include the total cost, for example, of ownership, the right quantities, obviously at the right time, in the right place for the direct benefit or use of governments, corporations, as well as individuals. Procurement is also governed by means of, but is not limited to, the different types of contracts that are available. Procurement system is typically a computerized system which is designed to actually manage the procurement process. The procurement is also a term used to describe purchasing activities for a business or a organization. There are two primary types of procurement systems, which is electronic procurement as well as a standard procurement. Now, electronic procurement is, or they call it e-procurement. Basically, sometimes it's also known as a supply exchange. This is the business-to-business or business-to-consumer or business-to-government purchase and sale, for example, supplies, work and services through maybe the internet as well as any other information and any networking systems. These days, most people are purchasing online goods via, for example, the different type of online systems and having their goods delivered directly to their homes. Typical procurement documents that apply to industries. For example, you might need to have a requisition form, stock level reports, order forms, delivery notes, letters, contracts, as well as quotations. Remember, a requisition form is basically a form which is basically a request from the company to purchase a specific product. Without that, the person who actually is receiving that order would not actually honor that request. Then a stock level report, as you know, basically is checking to see how much stock is actually in the actual business itself. So somebody wants to purchase, for example, a set of golf balls. They need to know how much stock is there actually in place in order to honor the order. The order form is then the official, basically, form which goes back to say this is official confirmation that we will in fact honor that request, and also then leads to the next note, which is the delivery note. That delivery note is confirmation that the goods that were ordered are now going to be delivered to the buyer. Letters is basically letters of confirmation, for example, of the transactions, for example, that's taken place between the two purchaser and the seller. And contracts is, if it's a long-term agreement, a contract would be, for example, state what are the terms and conditions of that contract between the two different parties. And of course, a quotation is also linked to the contracts in which the quotation will either be accepted or declined by the person who's wishing to purchase the goods or the actual service itself. Now, describing the typical methods for recording and controlling delivery, as well as the usage of materials according to their own business context. Try to persuade your suppliers to deliver goods in the same order that the goods actually appear on the invoice or delivery note. This obviously makes it easier to check the delivery and also to sort the goods for storage in your company. The goods will then be sent from the supplier with an invoice or a delivery note. You will offload the goods according to the delivery note and at the same time check that the goods that are delivered are what is actually stated on the delivery note. If you actually encounter discrepancy, do the following. Agree with the driver of the truck that there is a discrepancy. He may then want to check inside his truck for any missing goods. Inform your supervisor. Then note that discrepancy on the delivery note. Once you're satisfied that everything has been unloaded and that all discrepancies have been noted and reported, sign and date the delivery. The copies of the delivery note will then be distributed as follows. 1 copy will go to the supplier, 1 copy for your own records, and 1 copy that goes to the purchasing to actually check the delivery against the order and then also to arrange for the payment to be made. Please complete class activity 9 in your workbooks, and thereafter please complete your portfolio of evidence. Thank you.